One thing in terms of practice.
Yes.
Can you explain the difference between how it supports bhikkhunis to practice being a bhikkhuni rather than...
You want Bhante to talk about how it supports the practice of bhikkhunis?
No. Ask her. She's the one who knows.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, how does it support the practice? The Buddha designed the Vinaya, the practices in the Vinaya, to support the practice as the fastest vehicle to awakening. So the first thing we undertake, as well as the practice of the Dhamma, is also very refined practice of restraint. So it's a higher practice of virtue, and you're accountable in a kind of system or format that keeps you very transparent, very, very mindful, humble, open to feedback, able to give feedback also to your fellow monastics. And it's we practice the Patimokkha if we have an assembly of more than 4 people, which is called a Sangha. So when you have 4 bhikkhunis, you can actually recite the rules every 2 weeks. And this brings the community together. So this is one way, but I would say the way that other ordination platforms don't support the practice is that, just like the experiment that was done years ago of the Class B and the Class A kids, there was this school teacher who did this experiment, and she put, I think it was a woman.
Like the
who,
nice blue eyes?
No, that's another one. That's another one where
okay.
they taught them discrimination, basically.
Yeah.
They told, all the people with brown eyes are somehow inferior to the ones with blue eyes, and people started believing that. That's also relevant here, right? And that's how discrimination creeps in unconsciously, and we don't even realise we've been conditioned to see things that way. You actually start to perceive and view those people as less. But the A class and B class one is where they divided the classes into equal abilities. So both classes were the same level of ability, but they called one class A and one class B. And guess who came top the following year, right? And the class B were way behind because they believed they weren't as good. And so from my perspective and the perspective of many nuns who I know who have now disrobed, sadly, there started to be really detrimental psychological effects of living in a community or out of a community where they were not valued in the way that monks are, no matter how brilliant they were in the practice, in the studies, how competent they were as leaders in their own right. That just wasn't able to flourish because they weren't in that position. And also when women become more competent, more senior in monastic life, it's natural that your next step is to try to basically, you need challenges in life. It's like in a career, right? If you get to a certain point and you feel like, well, I have all these skills, what do I do with them next? You want to serve more. So then sometimes it's time for a person to take on a leadership role. They're not able to do that. And then there's also the practical aspect of not being officially part of the Sangha. It's only bhikkhus and bhikkhunis that are actually part of the Sangha that the Buddha created. And if you're not part of a Sangha, there is no support structure for you. So you literally don't have a place to live, you don't have food to eat. People don't come because it's meritorious, because they think it's more meritorious to offer to the monks. So that's what I was saying when Bhante was talking about, in Thailand, how well you get fed. Well, and you were saying for the Sangha, but you also were saying for the monks, because people consider Sangha monks only. And in fact, without bhikkhuni ordination, it is monks only. So all of these things, basically, it's not just a vehicle for your own liberation, it's the best vehicle to serve others as well. So I hope that makes sense. Yeah.
Okay.